Marry my
The
daughter or
payment.
leave this place
Now,
forever.
it's all here as
The
we
words
agreed.
hung in the desert
It
air,
better be.
absurd and absolute.
Count it yourself.
Caspian stared at the Apache chief, certain he had misheard. Around them, 6 warriors tightened their grip on spears, ready for violence. Marriage, Caspian said slowly. You would have me marry your daughter for land. Chief Ironwood's face remained impassive. For land, for acceptance, for the right to call this place home. His dark eyes were knowing. On my territory, I make the rules. Even kings must bow here. The last word landed like a stone. Kings. Caspian's jaw tightened. This mortal knew what he was. 12 hours earlier, Caspian had ridden into this valley seeking something entirely different. The desert had stretched endless beneath a dying sun as his black stallion crested the ridge. Below, a river cut through red earth, and along its banks grew clusters of white flowers that glowed in the fading light. Night bloom. He had searched 8 decades for these flowers. Legend said they could ease the curse of eternity, soften the terrible emptiness that came with immortal existence. To human eyes, they were merely beautiful. To a vampire king who had ruled darkness for centuries, they were his last hope for feeling something, anything, before he became completely hollow. But now this chief stood before him offering an impossible bargain. The land for a bride. Your daughter, Caspian said carefully. Why would you offer her to someone like me? Pain flickered across Ironwood's weathered features. Because she needs protection that outlives me. Because she has been hidden and called cursed for 7 years. Because you are the first being in decades who has come here without greed in his eyes. He paused. And because I am dying. 6 months, the medicine woman says, perhaps less. The admission settled heavy between them. Caspian heard truth in it, the resignation of a father worried about what he would leave behind. I don't understand, Caspian said. Why me? Why this? Come. Ironwood turned without waiting for agreement. See for yourself. They walked through the Apache camp as darkness claimed the valley. Cooking fires cast dancing shadows. Children's laughter rang out bright and pure despite the weight their parents carried. Normal life lived on land, being slowly stolen by treaties and broken promises. Caspian had seen this pattern across centuries. Conquerors and conquered, an endless cycle of displacement and grief. The weight of those memories sat heavy on his shoulders. They stopped before a dwelling set apart from the others. Larger than most, but isolated, deliberately so. My daughter lives here, Ironwood said. She has lived behind veils and walls since she was 18. The tribe calls her cursed. They say she is the ugliest woman ever born to our people. Movement in the doorway silenced Caspian's response. A figure emerged wrapped entirely in white cloth. The veil fell from head to ground, hiding every inch. She moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid of taking up too much space in the world. Caspian's vampire senses extended automatically. He heard her heartbeat strong and steady, but with a rhythm he had never encountered, like music played in a key that shouldn't exist. Her scent reached him, and he inhaled sharply. She smelled of dawn, not flowers or perfume, dawn itself. That moment when darkness surrendered to light, when the world hung suspended between night and day. Impossible. He had lived in shadow for so long, he knew every variation of darkness. But this woman carried the scent of something he had not experienced in centuries. Sunrise. Raven, Ironwood said gently, this is Caspian. He has come about the land. The figure didn't speak, didn't move except for the slight raised and fall of breathing beneath the veil. My daughter does not speak to strangers. She wears the veil day and night. No one has seen her face in 7 years except me and the medicine woman. Caspian stepped forward without conscious decision. His vampire nature screamed warnings, but stronger than instinct was the sudden, desperate hope that here might be something that could make him feel human again. Why do you hide her? His voice came out rougher than intended. Because she is ugly, Ironwood said flatly. Deformed, cursed by spirits or bad blood or the anger of gods. The tribe has invented every reason. Caspian extended his senses further, reading the truth that bodies couldn't hide. She was afraid, trembling beneath the veil. But beneath the fear, he sensed something else. Pride. Defiance. The steel core of someone who had survived rejection and emerged unbroken. The land cannot be purchased with gold, Ironwood said. Only with commitment, only with sacrifice. Marry Raven, become one of us, and the land is yours. Refuse and leave tonight. My warriors will ensure you do not return. Caspian could kill them all, of course. Take the land by force, harvest, the night bloom disappear into darkness. But standing there watching the veiled woman tremble in firelight, he found he couldn't. Centuries ago he had been human. A king, yes, but human. And humans didn't slaughter the innocent for flowers. 3 days, he said finally. You said I have 3 days to decide. 3 days, Ironwood confirmed. Caspian wanted to argue to explain that he had traveled so far for the night bloom that marriage was an absurd complication. But the words died as the veiled woman turned toward him. She didn't speak, didn't reveal herself. But through layers of white cloth he felt her gaze, studying him, measuring him, judging whether he was just another man come to gawk at the monster. He met that hidden gaze. I will consider your offer, 3 days. The chief nodded. A warrior stepped forward to guide Caspian to a small dwelling at the camp's edge. But as he turned to follow, Caspian glanced back once more. Raven stood motionless in the doorway, a ghost in white watching him disappear into darkness. And for the first time in a century, Caspian felt something stir in the frozen wasteland of his chest. Not hope exactly, but something close to it, something dangerous. The first night was torment. Caspian sat in the dwelling, staring at hide walls, fighting hunger that screamed through his veins. He had fed before coming to Arizona, drained a deer in the mountains, taken enough to sustain him for weeks. It should have been sufficient, but that scent had triggered something primal. Dawn, light, everything forbidden to his kind. His fangs descended despite his efforts to control them. His hands shook. He paced like a caged animal. This was why he had isolated himself from humans for the last century. Why he had retreated to his mountain fortress. He had thought himself beyond hunger, beyond temptation. He had been wrong. Outside the camp settled into sleep. Campfires burned low. But Caspian heard every heartbeat, every breath, and beneath them all that one impossible rhythm belonging to the woman in the veil. Her dwelling was 50 yards away. He could reach it in seconds. His hand was on the doorway before he realized he had moved. No, he jerked back, pressing himself against the far wall. This was not who he was. Not anymore. He had been Caspian the Cruel in his youth, Caspian the Conqueror in his middle years. But for the last 3 centuries, he had been Caspian the Controlled, the Ice King, the ruler who never let base instincts override reason. He would not become a monster for one woman's scent. But God, it was hard. Hours passed. The moon tracked across the sky. Caspian sat perfectly still, using every meditation technique learned across lifetimes, and slowly, painfully brought himself under control. The hunger didn't disappear. It never would completely. But he forced it into the locked chambers of his mind. When dawn threatened the eastern horizon, he finally allowed himself to sleep. His last conscious thought was of white veils and the scent of sunrise. He woke to voices outside. The sun had set again, his second day in the Apache camp. The stranger is vampire. We should kill him before he brings death to our people. The voice was young male, full of righteous anger. Caspian remained still, listening. You speak foolishness. This voice was older female. Chief Ironwood knows what he does. He would not invite danger without reason. Ironwood is dying. His judgment fails. His judgment is sharper than yours ever was, Standing Bear. The stranger has not harmed anyone. He sits in peace. Oh, vampires do not know peace. They know only hunger and death. Caspian rose silently and stepped through the doorway. The 2 speakers jumped. Standing Bear, a warrior, perhaps 25, reached for his spear. The older woman merely watched with eyes that had seen too much to be easily surprised. You speak truth, Caspian said calmly. Vampires are dangerous. We are predators. But predators can choose their prey, and I do not hunt humans. Lies, Standing Bear spat. All vampires hunt humans. Most do. Caspian moved into the open, careful to appear human, to move at human speed. I did once, but I grew tired of the taste of fear and suffering. For the last century, I have fed only on animals. Why should we believe you? You shouldn't. Belief must be earned. Give me the 3 days your chief promised and judge me by my actions. Standing Bear looked ready to argue, but the older woman placed a weathered hand on his arm. Enough. Return to your duties. The warrior left, throwing one last suspicious glance over his shoulder. Caspian turned to face the medicine woman. She was perhaps 70, face mapped with wrinkles that spoke of laughter and sorrow in equal measure. But her eyes were sharp. You are Caspian, she said. I am. I am Neshoba. I keep the old stories, the old medicine. I remember what my grandmother's grandmother told me of a vampire king who walked the earth before the white man came. She studied him. You match the description. Dark hair like raven wings, eyes like storms, beauty that makes mortals weep. Caspian inclined his head. She said you were cruel, that you took what you wanted without thought for those you harmed. Neshoba's voice held no accusation, only curiosity. Is this still true? Once, Caspian admitted. But I have been many things across the years. Now I am mostly just tired. Tired enough to marry a woman you have never seen. I haven't decided yet. Neshoba smiled. You already have, whether you know it or not. I see the way you look toward her dwelling. You want her. I don't even know her. Knowing and wanting are different things. The elder stepped closer. But I will warn you, Vampire King. Raven is precious. She is the last of her mother's bloodline, and that bloodline carries gifts the world has forgotten. If you marry her seeking only land or flowers, or escape from your loneliness, you will destroy her. And if you destroy her, I will find a way to destroy you, immortal or not. Something in Neshoba's eyes told Caspian she meant every word. I would never harm her, he said. Harm comes in many forms. Broken hearts bleed just as surely as broken skin. Neshoba turned to leave, then paused. She watches you, you know, from behind her veil. She has watched every moment since you arrived. She walked away, leaving Caspian with that information and the sudden urge to look toward Raven's dwelling. He resisted. Instead, he saddled his horse and rode toward the town 20 miles east. He needed distance, perspective. The town was called Redemption, small, dusty, the kind of place that existed only because the railroad needed stops between larger settlements. He tied his horse outside the general store and entered. Help you. The shopkeeper looked up from his ledger. I need supplies. Fabric. Good quality. The shopkeeper's suspicion deepened. Fabric. A gift, Caspian said simply. He purchased 3 yards of deep blue silk along with a thread and needles. As he gathered his purchases, an older woman entered. She wore black from head to toe, widow's weeds, her face lined with prairie sun. She glanced at Caspian, then at the fabric, and her eyes softened. Buying for your wife? She asked. Not yet. Perhaps soon. The woman Greta, according to the name the shopkeeper used, moved closer. You're the one staying with the Apache. The one considering marriage to Chief Ironwood's daughter. News traveled fast. Caspian nodded. Greta's expression grew complicated. I met her once, 7 years ago, before the chief started hiding her. She used to come to town with him sometimes. Caspian's attention sharpened. What was she like? She had a laugh that sounded like bells. Greta's eyes grew distant. The men in town, they looked at her the way vultures look at dying things. Hungry? Mean? The chief saw it too. Next time he came to town, she wasn't with him. Been behind that veil ever since. Did you see her face before? Greta hesitated, then shook her head. Only from a distance, but I remember thinking she was lovely. Too lovely for her own good in a world full of men who take what they want. She looked directly at Caspian. Are you that kind of man? No, Caspian said quietly. I am the kind of man trying to remember how to be a man at all. Greta studied him, then patted his arm with surprising gentleness. Then maybe you're exactly what she needs. He returned to camp as full darkness fell. The second day was nearly over. One day remained. As he passed through, camp warriors watched with varying degrees of hostility and curiosity. He ignored them all, walking directly to Raven's dwelling. She stood outside as if waiting, still veiled, still silent, but her posture was less rigid, head tilted slightly. Caspian stopped a respectful distance away and held up the package. I brought you something. She didn't move. Fabric, blue, the color of sky just before sunset. I thought you might like to make something that isn't white, if you wanted. Silence. But he sensed shift beneath the veil, a softening he couldn't quite name. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, Caspian said. And that's fine. I just wanted you to know that if we marry, I would never force you to do anything, including talk to me. He set the package on the ground and stepped back. Good night, Raven. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. Soft, uncertain. But there. Wait, Caspian froze. You are not like other men, she said. Her voice was beautiful, low and musical. You do not demand to see my face. You do not ask why I hide. You do not try to touch me. Should I? No, but most would. Cloth rustled as she moved. Why are you here, truly? My father says you want land, but I do not believe that is all. Caspian considered lying, but standing before this woman who had survived 7 years of isolation, he found he couldn't. I am lonely, he said simply. I have lived a very long time, and somewhere along the way I forgot how to feel. I came here looking for flowers that might remind me, but I'm beginning to think I was looking for the wrong thing. How long, she asked. He met her hidden gaze, long enough to have forgotten what it feels like to truly connect with another person. Silence stretched between them, filled with the sounds of the desert at night, crickets, distant coyotes, the whisper of wind through night-bloom flowers. I am ugly, Raven said finally, truly ugly. My father does not lie about that. If you marry me and see my face, you will regret it. I doubt that. How can you be sure? Caspian smiled, though she couldn't see it. Because I have lived long enough to see every variation of human beauty. It all fades. It all becomes meaningless. The only thing that matters is what lies beneath. And from what little I know of you, I believe what lies beneath is extraordinary. Long silence. Then so quiet he almost missed it. Ask me again tomorrow. On the third day, ask me if I want to marry you. And will you answer? Maybe. It was the most she had said. Caspian felt that dangerous thing in his chest again, that flutter of almost hope. Tomorrow then, he agreed. He left her standing in the doorway, white veil glowing in starlight. The second night was harder than the first. Her scent was everywhere, clinging to his clothes, filling his senses. And he couldn't stop thinking about her voice, the courage it took to speak. Caspian didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat outside and watched the stars wheel overhead, counting hours until the third day dawned. The sun rose, set, rose again. The third day. Caspian bathed in the river, dressed in his finest clothes, dark coat, white shirt, clothes from an era already passing into memory. He found Ironwood sitting outside his dwelling, coughing into a cloth. Even from a distance, Caspian smelled blood. The chief was dying faster than 6 months. You have decided, Ironwood said. I have. But I have questions first. Ask. Why did you really hide her the truth this time? Ironwood was quiet, staring at the blood-stained cloth. When he spoke, his voice carried old grief. Her mother died giving birth to Raven. My wife, the only woman I ever loved. He paused. When Raven was born, the medicine women gasped. They said she was marked by spirits. Blessed or cursed, they couldn't say. But different. Special. How? You will see if you marry her. But know this, there are men who collect rare things. Collectors. Slavers. Men who would take a woman with unique features and cage her. 7 years ago, one such man came to our camp. He offered me 100 horses for Raven. Caspian's hands clenched. You refused. Of course, she is my daughter, not merchandise. But the man was powerful. Rich. He promised to return with soldiers. Ironwood's voice hardened. So I hid her. Spread rumors that she was ugly, cursed, defective. I made her wear the veil so that if he returned, he would see nothing worth taking. And did he return? No, but others have come, asking about the chief's daughter, curious about the woman behind the veil. Ironwood looked directly at Caspian. You are the first who came for land, not for her. The first who did not know she existed before you arrived. And when I told you she was ugly, you did not flinch. You accepted without knowing what you would get. Understanding bloomed. You were testing me. I was. My daughter deserves a man who will choose her for who she is, not what she looks like. A man strong enough to protect her when I am gone. Ironwood's eyes were fierce despite his failing body. Are you that man, Vampire King? Caspian thought about centuries of life, of cruelties committed and people failed, of the vast emptiness where his heart should be. I don't know, he said honestly, but I would like to try. Ironwood smiled, and in that smile, Caspian saw a father's desperate hope. Then ask her, and whatever her answer, respect it. Caspian stood and walked to Raven's dwelling. She stood outside, waiting. The white veil caught the afternoon sun. He stopped before her and felt something he hadn't felt in centuries: nervousness. Raven, he said, I am Caspian. I came here looking for flowers that might cure loneliness, but I found you instead. She didn't move. I know you have been hidden for 7 years. I know you have been told you are ugly, cursed, worthless. I know you have every reason to say no. He took a breath he didn't need. But I am asking anyway. Will you marry me, not for land, not for alliance, but because I think we might save each other from drowning in our own loneliness? Silence. The desert held its breath. Then slowly Raven reached up and touched the edge of her veil. She pulled it aside just enough to reveal one hand. Small, bronze, perfect. She extended it toward him. Yes. Caspian took her hand. Her touch was warm, alive, and that impossible scent wrapped around him. Behind the veil, he still couldn't see her face, but he felt her trembling, felt her fear and hope warring. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet, she replied. You haven't seen what you agreed to marry. I've seen enough. In the distance, Ironwood coughed a terrible sound, but he was smiling as he watched his daughter accept the hand of a vampire king. The third day ended. The wedding would be in 3 more, and Caspian allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, he had finally found his way to dawn. 3 days passed like a held breath. Caspian spent those days learning Apache rhythms. He helped mend fences, though his supernatural strength made the work laughably easy. He sat with elders and listened to stories of ancestors and spirits. He watched children play their laughter, untouched by the weight their parents carried. And every evening, as the sun painted the desert in shades of fire, he sat outside Raven's dwelling and talked to her through the veil. He told her about Constantinople in the 12th century, about the Crusades, about ruling a vampire court in the Carpathian Mountains and growing so cold that snow fell inside his castle. She listened. Sometimes she asked questions in that low musical voice. Sometimes she simply sat in silence, and he found he didn't mind. After so many years of empty conversation, silence with purpose was a gift. On the second day she asked, "Do you miss it, being king?" Caspian considered. "I miss the certainty. When you rule, you always know what you are, what role you play. Out here, I am no one. Just a man trying to figure out how to be human again." "You were never just a man," she said softly. "Even when you were human, you were a king. How do you know? I can hear it in your voice, the way you speak, like someone used to being obeyed." She paused. "But there is something else, too. Loneliness. It has a sound, did you know, like wind through empty rooms." Caspian closed his eyes. "Yes, I know that sound well." On the third day, Raven gave him a gift, a small pouch of woven grass delicate as lace. "What is it?" he asked. "Open it later, after the ceremony." Her voice carried a smile he couldn't see. "It is tradition, something from the bride to show she accepts the marriage." He tucked the pouch inside his coat, feeling the slight weight against his chest. Something small, something precious. Elder Neshoba prepared him for the ceremony with herbs and ritual smoke. She painted symbols on his face in red clay, speaking Apache words that resonated in his bones despite not understanding their meaning. Ancient words, sacred words. "You know what you are risking," she said as she worked. "Marrying a woman with gifts, binding yourself to someone whose blood calls to your deepest hunger." "I know. And still you choose this, I choose her. Whatever comes with that, I accept." Neshoba's weathered hand stilled. She looked at him with eyes that had seen generations born and die. "Good, because the spirits are watching Vampire King, and they do not forgive those who break sacred vows." The warning settled over him, but he did not flinch. The sun began its descent, and the camp transformed. Women hung garlands of night-bloom flowers from every dwelling, their white petals glowing in fading light. Men built a great fire in the center of camp, feeding it with fragrant wood. Drums began their steady heartbeat rhythm, and voices rose in ancient songs. Caspian stood at the gathering's edge, dressed in clothes that blended Apache tradition with his own history. A white shirt, dark vest decorated with silver conchos, his hair loose falling past his shoulders. He looked like something caught between two worlds. Ironwood approached, moving slowly. The chief's illness had progressed visibly. His face was gaunt, his breathing labored, but his eyes were bright with determination. "My daughter is my greatest treasure," he said without preamble. "More precious than all the horses in our herd, more valuable than all the land the government has not yet stolen. Do you understand what I am giving you?" "I understand," Caspian replied, "and I swear on everything I am, I will protect her." Ironwood studied him, then nodded. "The ceremony will be in our tradition. You will stand at the fire. Raven will come to you. You will share food and water, symbolizing the sharing of life. Then the veil will be removed. And I will see what 7 years of hiding has protected." Ironwood's voice grew heavy. "What you see may shock you, may frighten you, but you have given your word, and Apache do not look kindly on those who break sacred oaths. I will not break my word. We shall see." The chief walked away. The entire tribe had gathered. Warriors stood at attention, faces painted for ceremony. Women wore their finest dresses decorated with beadwork and quills. Children sat cross-legged, eyes wide. This was an event that would be spoken of for generations. The drums grew louder. The singing intensified. And then, like a ghost materializing from Shadowraven appeared. She wore white, but this was different. The veil had been replaced with something finer, more elaborate, cloth that shimmered in firelight, embroidered with silver thread that caught every flicker of flame. She moved slowly, escorted by 2 elderly women who walked on either side like guardians. Caspian's senses went into overdrive. Her scent hit him like a physical blow. That impossible dawn fragrance. Everything forbidden and desperately wanted. His fangs descended involuntarily. He had to clench his jaw to hide them. His hands trembled. She stopped before him close enough to touch. Through the veil he could see nothing. Just white cloth and the sound of her breathing, quick and nervous. Ironwood stepped forward, his voice carrying across the gathered tribe. We are here to witness a union. A stranger becomes family. An outsider becomes brother. A vampire becomes husband. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some warriors shifted uneasily. So they knew, but no one moved to stop the ceremony. The spirits watch us, Ironwood continued. The ancestors watch us. The earth and sky watch us. Let no one interfere with what is sacred. He gestured to Neshoba, who brought forward a bowl of river water and a plate of food corn-dried meat berries. She placed them between Caspian and Raven. Share what sustains life, Ironwood commanded. Become one in the eyes of all who witness. Caspian lifted the bowl to his lips, drinking though he needed no water. Then he handed it to Raven. She took it with trembling hands, raising the veil just enough to drink. He caught a glimpse of her chin, bronze skin, delicate as artwork, before the veil fell back. They shared the food next. Caspian took a small piece of corn, forcing it down. Raven did the same, her movements careful, deliberate. The drums reached a crescendo. The singing swelled, and Ironwood raised his hands to the darkening sky. What is joined here cannot be separated, he declared. What is bound here cannot be broken. By earth and sky, by fire and water, by the spirits of all who came before, I pronounce you married. He stepped forward and placed his hands on Raven's veil. This was it, the moment. Centuries of existence narrowed to this single point in time. The veil must be lifted, Ironwood said softly. Are you ready to see what you have married? Caspian's throat was tight. I am. Ironwood began to lift the cloth, slowly, reverently. First her feet appeared bare and graceful, then her legs clothed in white buckskin decorated with intricate beadwork, her hands small and perfect, her arms slender and strong. The veil rose higher, her neck, long, elegant, her chin, her lips full and soft and trembling. Higher, and then the veil fell away completely. Caspian forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful, not conventionally. She was beautiful as way mountains were beautiful, the way storm clouds gathering over an empty plain were beautiful, terrifying and perfect and utterly beyond human creation. Her face was flawless. High cheekbones, straight nose, skin the color of bronze touched by sunset. Black hair fell past her shoulders adorned with white flowers. But her eyes, the left eye was gold, not brown with golden flecks. Pure gold, like a coin fresh from the mint, like the sun at noon. It gleamed in firelight, catching every flicker, burning with its own inner radiance. The right eye was silver, not gray, not light blue. Silver like the moon at its fullest, like starlight, concentrated into liquid form, like winter ice reflecting endless sky. Heterochromia, but not the mild version he had occasionally seen. This was something else entirely, something impossible. Two eyes that should not exist in the same face, could not exist, did not follow any natural law he knew. And yet here they were, looking at him with desperate hope and terrible fear. The camp fell silent. Every eye watched, waiting for his reaction, waiting to see if the vampire king would reject the treasure Ironwood had protected for 7 years. Caspian sank to his knees. In all his years he had knelt before no one. Not kings, not popes, not even God. But he knelt now before this woman because standing felt like arrogance in the face of such beauty. You are the most beautiful being I have seen in 8 centuries of existence, he said, his voice rough with emotion he had thought himself incapable of feeling. Not despite your eyes, because of them. Raven made a sound, half sob, half laugh. Tears spilled down her cheeks, catching firelight as they fell. You do not see a monster. I see a miracle. The tribe erupted, not in protest but in celebration. Warriors beat their spears against the earth. Women began to dance. Children shouted with joy. And the drums pounded out a rhythm that sounded like heartbeats, like thunder, like the earth itself rejoicing. But Caspian heard none of it. His entire world had narrowed to those 2 eyes, gold and silver, sun and moon, day and night held in perfect balance. Ironwood's voice cut through the celebration. I called her ugly to protect her. 7 years ago, men came. Collectors. Slavers. They wanted to take her, put her in cages, parade her before crowds who would pay to see the girl with God's eyes. His voice hardened. I hid her, spread lies, made her invisible. because I knew that beauty this rare would attract only the worst kind of attention. He looked at Caspian and his expression softened. But you came seeking land, not her. You agreed to marry without knowing. You proved yourself worthy. He placed a hand on Caspian's shoulder. Protect her, vampire king. Love her. Give her the life I can no longer guarantee. The celebration continued late into the night, but Caspian and Raven slipped away as soon as propriety allowed. Ironwood had prepared a dwelling for them. Private, sacred space for a new marriage. They reached the dwelling, stopped outside. Neither moved to enter. Are you afraid? Raven asked softly. Terrified, Caspian admitted. Of what? Of disappointing you. Of being less than what you need. Of this feeling in my chest that I think might be my heart waking up after so long asleep. She smiled, and it transformed her face from merely beautiful to something that made his knees weak. I am afraid too, not of you, of not being enough, of you regretting this when you truly know me. Impossible. They stood in silence, two people who had been alone too long, learning how to not be alone together. Finally, Raven extended her hand. Come inside with me. Caspian took her hand and they crossed the threshold. The dwelling was simple but comfortable. Furs covered the floor. A small fire burned in the center, sending shadows dancing across hide walls. Someone had left food and water, though neither would need it. They sat by the fire, not touching, maintaining careful distance. Caspian watched the flames fighting the hunger that screamed through his vampire nature. Her presence was overwhelming. Will you tell me, Raven asked, about what you are feeling right now? He turned to her, meeting those impossible eyes. Truth, always. I am fighting the strongest bloodlust I have experienced in a century. Your scent. He stopped searching for words. You smell like sunrise, and every instinct I possess is telling me to drink from you, to take what your blood promises. She should have been afraid, should have pulled away. Instead, she moved closer. What does my blood promise? I don't know, but something impossible. He clenched his fists. But I won't. I would never. I have control. What if I wanted you to? Caspian's head snapped up. What? Those gold and silver eyes were steady. What if I chose to give you my blood freely? Would it still be wrong? Yes, no, He struggled. Raven, you don't understand. Vampire feeding is intimate, dangerous. And with you, with what you are, I don't know what would happen. It could kill you. Or it could free you. Not worth your life. She smiled sadly. You have known me 4 days, and you already value my life above your own freedom. Yes. The simple word hung between them. Raven reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and touched his face. Her hand was warm, alive, and the contact sent electricity through him. I have lived 7 years behind a veil, she said quietly. 7 years being told I was cursed. Ugly. Something to hide. And in 4 days you have made me feel seen. Valued. Beautiful. How could I not trust you? Caspian leaned into her touch, closing his eyes. I don't deserve this. Deserve you. Perhaps neither of us deserves the other. Perhaps we are simply two broken things that fit together in unexpected ways. They stayed like that, her hand on his face, his eyes closed, both trembling with emotion and restraint, and the terrifying vulnerability of being truly seen. Finally, Raven withdrew her hand. It is late. We should rest. But neither moved toward the sleeping furs. The fire burned low. Outside, the celebration had faded. The camp settled into sleep. And still they sat watching each other, learning the landscape of this new thing between them. Caspian lasted until just before dawn. Then as the sky began to lighten, the bloodlust became unbearable. He stood abruptly. I need to leave, just for a while. To hunt. Raven nodded, understanding in those strange eyes. Go, I will be here when you return. He fled into the desert. The hunt was brutal and unsatisfying. He drained a deer, then another, trying to drown the hunger in volume. It didn't work. Nothing worked. That scent clung to his clothes, his skin, his memory. He returned to camp as the sun climbed the sky, forcing himself into the death sleep that claimed vampires during daylight. When he woke at sunset, Raven was sitting beside him, working on embroidery. She glanced up as his eyes opened. Welcome back. Caspian sat up slowly. I'm sorry, last night, leaving like that. You protected me, by leaving when the hunger became too strong. Do not apologize for that. She set aside her work. But we should talk about what I am, what my blood means. Ironwood said you have gifts. Yes. Raven stood and moved to the fire, adding wood. My mother had them too. The eyes, the blood. Elder Neshoba says we are healers. That we appear once every 1,000 years born to balance supernatural forces. She turned to face him. My mother could heal any wound with a touch, could see death coming and sometimes turn it away. But her gifts made her a target. Collectors, scientists, men who wanted to study her use her. Is that how she died? Giving birth to me. The healer said her body could not sustain both the gift and a child. She chose me. Raven's voice was soft with old grief. My father has spent every day since trying to protect me from her fate. Caspian thought of Ironwood dying slowly, spending his last months arranging protection for his daughter. He is a good father. He is, and he chose you because he believes you are strong enough to protect me and good enough not to exploit me. She met his eyes. Are you? I will be, even if it kills me. That is what I hoped you would say. She reached into her dress and withdrew a small vial. Inside was a single drop of blood. Elder Neshoba took this from me. She says if a vampire king drinks healer's blood freely, given one of two things will happen. Caspian stared at the vial. What things? You will gain the daylight gift, the ability to walk in sun without burning, or you will die. She held the vial out. The choice is yours. Then the choice is easy. I will not risk your death for my comfort. It is not my death that would result. The blood is already given. I would be fine. It is you who would risk everything. Her eyes were steady. But imagine it, Caspian. Imagine walking in daylight again, feeling the sun on your face, living without darkness. Not worth your blood. Not even one drop already freely given. He looked at the vial, at the dark liquid inside. The chance to feel warmth again, to see the world in full light, to be something more than a creature of shadows. But looking at Raven, at her impossible beauty and her fierce courage, he knew the truth. If I die from drinking your blood, I leave you unprotected. Ironwood dies soon. You would be alone again, vulnerable to anyone who wanted to take you. He shook his head. I will not risk it. Not for all the sunlight in the world. Raven's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. She corked the vial and tucked it away. Then I made the right choice. What choice? Choosing you. Before Caspian could respond, shouting erupted outside. Angry voices. The sound of horses. Many horses. They rushed from the dwelling to find the camp in chaos. Warriors grabbed weapons. Women pulled children inside. And at the camp's entrance, a group of mounted men sat on expensive horses, led by a man who looked like he had stepped from a British manor house into the American West. Lord Ashford. Even without introduction, Caspian knew. This was the collector. The man who had come 7 years ago wanting to buy Raven. Ashford was perhaps 55, with graying hair and cold eyes that assessed everything like merchandise. He wore a fine sarong despite the desert heat, and 20 armed men flanked him. Ironwood stepped forward, though the effort clearly cost him. His face was gray with pain, his breathing labored. You are not welcome here, Ashford. Chief Ironwood. Ashford's British accent was clipped precise. How unfortunate to see you in such poor health. I had hoped we could conduct business as gentlemen. We have no business. Oh, but we do. I have come for the girl. Raven, I believe her name is. Ashford's eyes scanned the camp until they landed on her standing beside Caspian. His expression shifted from calculation to hunger. My God, you are exquisite. Those eyes. I could charge a fortune just for people to look at you. Raven stepped behind Caspian instinctively. He moved to shield her, his body a barrier between her and Ashford's gaze. She is married, Ironwood said firmly. She is not for sale. Everything is for sale at the right price. Ashford gestured to his men. I am prepared to offer 500 horses, 1,000 head of cattle, gold. Name your price, chief. There is no price. Leave. Now. Ashford's pleasant expression hardened. I tried to do this civilly, but if you insist on being difficult. He pulled a document from his coat. I have obtained permission from the territorial governor to remove any individuals deemed of scientific interest from native lands. Your daughter qualifies. I can take her legally. The hell you can, Caspian growled. Ashford's attention shifted to him for the first time. And you are her husband. Ah, the mysterious stranger willing to marry a veiled woman. How romantic. Ashford's tone was mocking. Tell me, does the novelty wear off, those freakish eyes? Caspian moved before thought could stop him, vampire speed carrying him across the space in a blink. He grabbed Ashford by the throat and lifted him from his saddle, holding him in the air with one hand. Speak of my wife again, Caspian said softly, his fangs descended. his eyes gone red with rage. "And I will show you what true monsters look like." The camp exploded. Ashford's men raised rifles, Apache warriors raised spears, women screamed, children cried, and at the center, Caspian held a British lord by the throat, his vampire nature fully exposed. "Stop!" Ironwood's voice cut through the chaos, but it ended in a terrible coughing fit. Blood sprayed from his mouth. He collapsed. Caspian dropped Ashford and rushed to the chief. Raven was already there, her hands on her father's chest. Neshoba pushed through the crowd, face grim. "Inside," the elder commanded. "Now." They carried Ironwood to his dwelling. His breathing was wet, labored. More blood stained his lips. Neshoba examined him quickly, then looked at Raven with sorrow. "Days, perhaps hours. The sickness has reached his lungs." "No," Raven's voice broke. "No, not yet. He cannot." Ironwood's hand found hers. "Daughter, listen. The collector will not stop. He has resources, power. He will return with more men, with legal authority, with whatever he needs." His eyes found Caspian. "Protect her. Promise me." "I swear it," Caspian said. "Good." Ironwood coughed again. "There is something you should know about healer's blood." "Neshoba, tell him." The elder's face was grave. "If a dying man gives his blood willingly to a vampire, and that vampire drinks it, the curse changes. The vampire gains a mortal lifespan, will age as humans age, will die as humans die." She looked at Caspian. "You would lose your immortality, but gain the ability to grow old with your wife." Caspian's mind reeled. Lose immortality, become mortal, die. Ironwood pulled him closer. "Drink my blood, become mortal, live a human lifetime with Raven. 50 years, 60 if you are blessed. It is more than most get." His grip tightened. "And when I am gone, you will be strong enough to protect her, but human enough to stand in daylight and fight Ashford with legal rights." "Father, no," Raven protested. "You cannot ask this." "I do not ask, I offer." Ironwood looked at Caspian. "What is immortal loneliness compared to 50 years of love?" Outside, Ashford's voice rang out. "You have until morning, give me the girl, or I bring the army." Caspian looked at Ironwood, at Raven, at the impossible choice before him. Centuries of power and darkness and immortal emptiness, or 50 years of mortality and light in the woman with impossible eyes. The answer was terrifyingly simple. "Tell me what to do," he said. Neshoba worked quickly, her weathered hands steady despite the gravity of what she was about to do. She prepared Ironwood, washing his chest with sacred herbs, painting symbols in red clay across his skin. The dwelling filled with smoke from burning sage. Caspian knelt beside the dying chief, his mind still reeling from the choice he had made. He was about to give up centuries of immortality for a mortal lifetime with a woman he had known for 6 days. And yet, looking at Raven's face, at those impossible gold and silver eyes filled with tears and hope, he knew he would make the same choice 1,000 times over. "Are you certain?" Ironwood asked weakly. Blood flecked his lips. His breathing rattled like stones in a jar. Death was coming swift and merciless. "I am certain," Caspian replied. "You will lose everything. Your power, your immortality. You will become as fragile as any man. You will age. You will die." "I know." Ironwood studied him. "Why? Why would a king give up his kingdom for a woman he barely knows?" Caspian thought about the question, about centuries of walking through a world that moved and changed while he remained frozen, about watching everyone he had ever cared for turn to dust. "Because I have been alive for a very long time," he said finally, "but I have not been living. And I would rather have 50 years of true life with Raven than an eternity of existing without her." Raven made a sound, half sob, half laugh. She took his hand and squeezed it so tightly her knuckles went white. Ironwood smiled, peace settling over his pain-racked features. "Then you are worthy, more than worthy." He extended his arm. "Neshoba, prepare him." The elder painted symbols on Caspian's face to match Ironwood's. She chanted in Apache words that resonated in his bones. The smoke grew thicker, the air grew heavier, and Caspian felt something shift, as if the world itself was taking notice. "When a vampire drinks from a dying mortal who gives blood freely," Neshoba explained, her voice taking on the cadence of ritual, "the curse of immortality can be transferred. Not broken, not destroyed, but transformed. You will become mortal vampire king. Your heart will beat, your lungs will breathe, your body will age as all mortal bodies age." "How long?" Caspian asked. "Ironwood gives you his remaining years multiplied by the strength of his spirit." She looked at the chief, 50 years, perhaps 60 if the spirits are generous. You will grow old with Raven. You will see your children grow, your grandchildren born. And when death comes, it will come as a friend, not an enemy. 50 years. It seemed both impossibly short and miraculously long. 50 years with Raven would be enough, would be everything. I accepted, he said. Neshoba nodded and turned to Ironwood. And you, Chief, do you give your blood freely, without coercion or regret? I give it joyfully, Ironwood whispered, for my daughter's future, for her happiness. Take what I offer, Vampire King, and use it well. The elder made a small cut on Ironwood's wrist, blood welled darker than it should be, thick with sickness and approaching death. She held the chief's arm over a clay bowl, letting several drops fall. Drink, she commanded Caspian, and let the transformation begin. Caspian lifted the bowl to his lips. The blood smelled wrong, tainted with disease, heavy with mortality. Every vampire instinct screamed at him to refuse. He drank anyway. The effect was immediate and agonizing. Fire raced through his veins, burning away centuries of vampiric power. He gasped, and the gasp became a scream. His body convulsed. His fangs retracted. His supernatural strength drained like water from a broken vessel. And his heart, his dead, silent heart, that had not beaten in so long, stuttered. Stopped. Stuttered again. Then beat. Once. Twice. A rhythm so foreign he had forgotten what it felt like. Pain lanced through his chest. His lungs expanded, drawing air, not because he willed them to, but because his body needed oxygen. Actually needed it, would die without it. He was mortal. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Fragile, temporary, subject to all the weaknesses and vulnerabilities that came with human flesh. A sword could kill him now, a bullet, disease, time itself. He had never been more terrified, or more alive. Raven caught him as he collapsed, her arms strong despite her slender frame. I have you, she whispered. I have you. Caspian clung to her, trembling with transformation and terror, and something that might have been joy. His heart beat against his ribs, loud, insistent, undeniable. He was breathing, actually breathing. The sensation was overwhelming. How do you feel? Neshoba asked. Like I'm dying, Caspian managed, but also like I'm being born. Both are true. The vampire dies, the man lives. She helped him sit up. Rest now, the transformation will complete over the next hour. An hour passed. The transformation completed as the first light touched the horizon. Caspian felt the last vestiges of vampire power leave him, replaced by the warm pulse of mortal blood in his veins. But there was no time to rest. Outside, Ashford's voice rang through the morning, impatient and commanding. I grow tired of waiting. Send out the girl or I will take her by force. Ironwood struggled to sit up, his face gray with exhaustion. Neshoba, help me outside. I must speak with him. You are too weak. I am dying anyway. Let me die protecting my daughter. The chief's voice was firm despite its weakness. Help me. They supported him outside, Caspian on one side, Neshoba on the other. Raven followed, her face set with determination. The camp had gathered warriors, forming a protective circle. Women held children close. Everyone knew this confrontation would determine their future. Ashford sat on his horse like a lord surveying peasants. His 20 armed men flanked him, rifles ready. In the firelight, his face was sharp with greed and impatience. Finally, I was beginning to think you had forgotten your manners, Chief. I have not forgotten anything, Ashford. Ironwood stood as straight as his failing body would allow, including the last time you came here, offering money for my daughter like she was livestock. I offered fair market value. She is not for sale. She was not then. She is not now. She is married. She belongs to no one but herself and her chosen husband. Ashford's eyes found Caspian, and his lip curled. Ah, yes, the mysterious bridegroom. Tell me, does your wife know what you are, what you were? He raised his voice for the crowd. This man is a vampire, a demon, a creature of darkness who feeds on human blood. Gasps rippled through the gathered tribe. Warriors shifted, uncertain. Some had suspected, but hearing it stated so baldly was different. Caspian stepped forward, still weak from transformation, but determined. I was a vampire. I am not any longer. I have given up immortality. I am mortal now. Human. As vulnerable as any man here. Convenient, Ashford sneered, and we are simply to take your word for it. Test me if you doubt. Cut me, I will bleed. Shoot me, I will die. I am no longer what I was. Caspian's newly beating heart pounded in his chest. I am simply a man trying to protect his wife. Ashford studied him, calculation in his cold eyes. Then he smiled. Very well. If you are truly mortal, then we can settle this as men. A challenge. You and me. Winner takes the girl. She is not a prize to be won, Raven said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. She stepped forward, gold and silver eyes blazing. I am a person. I have made my choice. And no challenge, no fight, no amount of money will change that. My dear girl, you simply do not understand the opportunity I am offering. Ashford's tone was patronizing. I can give you a life beyond this primitive camp. Fine clothes, education. You would be famous, wealthy. People would travel from around the world just to see you. To see my eyes, you mean. To gawk at what makes me different. Raven's voice was steady, fearless. You do not see me as a person. You see me as a curiosity, a thing to be displayed and profited from. And I would rather die in this primitive camp than live as your prisoner. Ashford's pleasant mask slipped. Then you are a fool, and your father is a dying old man who cannot protect you, and your husband is a newly mortal vampire too weak to stand against my men. He gestured, and his mercenaries raised their rifles, 20 barrels pointed at Caspian's chest. Last chance, Ashford said. Give me the girl or everyone here dies. Ironwood swayed, his strength finally failing. Neshoba caught him as he fell, lowering him gently to the ground. The chief's breathing was shallow, labored. Death was moments away. But before anyone could move, before Ashford could give the order to fire, Ironwood spoke. His voice was barely a whisper, but in the silence everyone heard. Raven, my daughter, come here. She ran to him, falling to her knees at his side. Tears streamed down her face, catching the early light like molten gold and silver. Do not cry, Ironwood said gently. He reached up and touched her face, his hand trembling. You are my greatest accomplishment, my proudest joy, and I am leaving you in good hands. Father, please. Hush, listen. You have a gift, the healer's eyes. Use them. Not just to see, but to heal. This world is broken, daughter. It needs people like you to mend it. He looked at Caspian. Protect her. Love her. Give her the life I could not. I swear it, Caspian said. Ironwood smiled. Then his eyes closed. His breathing stopped. And Chief Ironwood, protector of his people, father to a daughter with impossible eyes, left the world as peacefully as a man could hope. Raven's cry of grief pierced the morning. She bent over her father's body, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Neshoba placed a hand on her head, murmuring prayers in Apache. Warriors bowed their heads. Women wept. And Caspian felt his new mortal heart break for the first time. He knelt beside Raven, putting his arm around her. She turned into him, burying her face against his chest, and wept like the world was ending. He held her, this woman he barely knew but had already given up eternity for, and let her grief wash over them both. Ashford watched with impatience. Touching, truly, but business remains. I will give you 1 hour to mourn. Then I expect an answer. He turned his horse and rode back to his camp, his mercenaries following. But Caspian knew this was not over. Ashford would return, would bring more men, would use legal authority or brute force or whatever it took, unless Caspian stopped him. The tribe mourned through the morning. They prepared Ironwood's body according to tradition, washing him with sacred herbs, dressing him in his finest clothes, painting his face with symbols of honor and respect. They would bury him at midday in the place where his ancestors rested. But Caspian could not think about burials, because Ashford's deadline was approaching and he needed a plan. He found Neshoba sitting alone, grinding herbs. The old medicine woman looked up as he approached. You feel it, she said. Feel what? The weight of mortality, the knowledge that time is limited, that every moment matters. She gestured for him to sit. It is a gift, Vampire King, not a curse. Immortals forget the value of time because they have infinite amounts of it. But mortals, we know every second is precious. Caspian sat, his new body aching. I need to stop Ashford. Permanently. But I am weak now. Mortal. I cannot fight 20 armed men. No, you cannot. Neshoba's eyes were knowing. But you are not alone. You have a tribe. Warriors who respect you. A wife with gifts you do not yet understand. And you have something Ashford does not. What? The willingness to sacrifice everything for love. That is a power greater than any weapon. Before Caspian could respond, Raven appeared. Her eyes were red from crying, but her expression was determined. She held the small vial from before the one containing her blood. You said you would not risk dying for my blood, she said. But Ashford will kill you anyway if you fight him as you are now. Weak, Newly mortal, unable to defend yourself. Raven. Let me finish. Neshoba told me something she did not tell you. About healer's blood. She looked at the elder, who nodded permission. If a mortal, not a vampire but a true mortal, drinks my blood, they do not gain the daylight gift. Instead, they gain something else. Enhanced strength, speed, healing. Not supernatural, but greater than normal humans possess. Caspian stared at her. You would give me your blood after I just became mortal. One drop, freely given. It will not change what you are. You will remain mortal, remain able to age and die, but it will give you a chance against Ashford. She pressed the vial into his hand. Please, let me help you protect us both. He looked at the vial, at the dark drop inside, at Raven's face so earnest and brave and beautiful it made his new heart ache. If I drink this, you will be strong enough to fight, but still mortal enough to stay with me. She touched his face. I cannot lose you too. Not today. Not after my father. Caspian uncorked the vial. The blood smelled different now that he was mortal. Not like forbidden dawn, just like blood. Precious. Life-giving. He drank. Power flooded through him. Not the cold, dark power of vampirism. Something warmer. Cleaner. Like fire in his veins instead of ice. His new muscles strengthened. His senses sharpened. His reflexes quickened. He was still mortal, still vulnerable, but he was also enhanced, improved, ready. Thank you, he whispered. Raven kissed him. Their first real kiss. It was soft and desperate and tasted of tears and hope and the beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. When they parted, she said, go, fight, win, come back to me. Caspian armed himself with weapons borrowed from Apache warriors. A rifle, a knife, a spear. The enhancement from Raven's blood made him a quick study. At midday, Ashford returned with his mercenaries, but he also brought something else. A detachment of U.S. Army soldiers, 20 more men in blue uniforms carrying official papers. I've obtained a writ, Ashford announced, waving documents. Legal authority to remove Raven from this territory for scientific study. She will come with me, peacefully or not. The Army captain, a young man who looked uncomfortable with his orders, stepped forward. I am Captain Morrison. I have orders to escort the woman with unusual eyes to Santa Fe for examination by government scientists. She is married, Caspian said. She is not going anywhere. Marriage to a native is not recognized by U.S. law, Ashford said smugly. She is legally free to be claimed. Rage burned through Caspian, but he forced himself to stay calm, to think, to plan. Then I challenge you, he said clearly. A formal duel. You and me. Winner takes all rights to Raven. Loser leaves and never returns. Ashford laughed. You, a mortal, barely a day old, against me. Unless you are afraid. The taunt hit home. Ashford's face darkened. Fine, a duel, but when I win, the girl comes with me, and no one interferes. Agreed. Captain Morrison looked relieved. Pistols at 20 paces. Standard dueling rules. Both parties agree. They agreed. The camp cleared a space. Warriors and soldiers formed a circle, creating an arena. Raven stood with Neshoba, her face pale but composed. Her gold and silver eyes tracked Caspian's every movement. Ashford removed his coat, revealing expensive clothes beneath. He handled his pistol with the ease of someone who had fought many duels. Probably won them all. Caspian held his borrowed weapon awkwardly. He had fired guns before long ago when they were new and unreliable. But he had Raven's blood in his veins and lifetimes of combat experience in his bones. They stood back to back. Captain Morrison counted paces. 1, Bikram. 2, 3, oi! Caspian's new heart hammered. His mortal body flooded with adrenaline. He had forgotten what fear felt like, what the knowledge of potential death did to a living system. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. 18, 19, 20, turn and fire. They spun. Ashford fired first, his shot true and practiced. The bullet caught Caspian in the shoulder, punching through flesh and muscle. Pain exploded. Blood flowed. In his vampire days, this would have been a minor inconvenience. Now it could be fatal. But the enhancement from Raven's blood kicked in. His body healed faster than human normal. Not instant, not supernatural, but fast enough. The bleeding slowed, the pain dulled, and Caspian raised his pistol with steady hands. Ashford's eyes widened as he realized his opponent was still standing. Caspian fired. The bullet hit Ashford's gun hand, shattering bone. The British lord screamed, dropping his weapon. Blood poured from the wound. He collapsed to his knees, cradling his ruined hand. Impossible, he gasped. You should be dead. I am enhanced. protected, loved. Caspian walked forward, his own wound had already mostly healed. And you are finished. Leave, now, and never return. Ashford looked around wildly, seeking help, but Captain Morrison stepped forward. The duel is concluded. Lord Ashford lost. All agreements are binding. The young captain looked at Caspian. Your wife is free to stay with you. The government has no further interest. The mercenaries helped Ashford to his feet. He looked at Raven one last time, his face twisted with rage and loss. You could have been famous, wealthy. Instead, you choose poverty and obscurity. I choose love, Raven said simply, and that is worth more than all your gold. Ashford and his men left, riding away into the desert. The soldiers followed, and the Apache camp erupted in celebration. But Caspian felt no joy. His shoulder throbbed. His new mortal body was exhausted, and Ironwood's body waited to be buried. They laid the chief to rest as the sun reached its zenith. Neshoba performed the ceremony, speaking words of passage and peace. Warriors stood at attention. Women sang songs of mourning. Raven wept silently, her tears falling on the earth that would cover her father. Caspian stood beside his wife, his arm around her shoulders, and felt the full weight of mortality settle on him. This was what being human meant: loss, grief, the knowledge that everyone you loved would eventually leave you. But it also meant connection, family, the preciousness of limited time. He would take the trade, 1,000 times over. That night, Raven and Caspian returned to their dwelling. They sat by the fire, not speaking, just being present with each other. Finally, Raven broke the silence. You are truly mortal now. I am. Does it frighten you? Caspian considered. Yes, but it also feels right, like I have been asleep for so long and finally woke up. He took her hand. I will age now, grow old, die. Are you prepared for that? I will age too, grow old beside you, die when my time comes. She leaned against him. We have perhaps 50 years together, maybe 60. It is not forever. No, but it is enough. They sat in comfortable silence, watching flames dance. Outside, the camp settled into sleep. The crisis had passed. Ashford was gone. Ironwood was at rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they had peace. I have something for you, Raven said. She retrieved the small pouch she had given him before the wedding. Open it now. Caspian opened the woven grass container. Inside was a single night bloom flower, perfectly preserved. You came seeking these, Raven said, seeking cure for loneliness. Did you find what you were looking for? Caspian looked at the flower, at its white petals that glowed even in firelight. The flower he had searched so long to find, the cure for the emptiness inside him. But holding it now with Raven beside him, immortality warm in his veins, he realized something. I found something better, he said. I found you. He kissed his wife, really kissed her, with his new mortal heart beating and his new mortal lungs breathing, and the knowledge that this moment, this person, this love was temporary and therefore infinitely precious. Time moved forward. They built a house on the land by the river, a simple structure of wood and stone. Caspian learned to work with mortal hands, mortal strength. Everything took longer. Everything was harder. Everything was more satisfying. Raven planted gardens. She used her healer's gift to help the sick, the injured, anyone who needed aid. Word spread of the woman with golden and silver eyes who could ease suffering with a touch. But they were careful, never drawing too much attention. A year passed, then two. Raven grew pregnant. When their daughter was born, a perfect, healthy girl with eyes of gold and silver, just like her mother's, Caspian wept. Actually wept, human tears of overwhelming joy. They named her Dawn, because she represented everything new and bright and hopeful. More children followed. A son 2 years later, another daughter 3 years after that. Each one healthy, each one bearing the healer's eyes, each one a miracle. Caspian aged. Lines appeared around his eyes. Silver threaded through his dark hair. His body, which had been frozen for so long, finally remembered how to move forward through time. He had never been happier. 30 years passed. Caspian stood in the garden behind their house, his hair now mostly silver, his face lined with decades of laughter and worry and love. He was 62 years old in appearance. The vampire had died 30 years ago. The man had lived ever since. Raven approached 55 years old and still beautiful. Her hair had threads of gray, her face carried gentle lines, but those impossible eyes, gold and silver, were unchanged. Come inside, she called. Everyone is here. Their 3 children had come for Sunday dinner. Dawn with her husband and 2 children, Marcus newly married, and Isolde still single studying to be a teacher. The house filled with noise and laughter and the chaos of family. After dinner, after the children had gone home and the house was quiet again, Caspian and Raven sat on their porch and watched the sunset paint the desert in impossible colors. "Do you regret it?" Raven asked. Caspian took her hand. It was more wrinkled than it had been marked by age and work and time, but it was warm, live, real. "Never. We have time yet, 20 more years, maybe 30. However long we get, I will cherish every moment." They sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, as the desert cooled, as stars emerged one by one. 2 people who had been alone too long, who had found each other against impossible odds, who had chosen temporary love over eternal loneliness. The night bloom flowers opened in the garden, their white petals glowing in the twilight. Caspian had planted them years ago, those flowers he had searched so long to find. They bloomed faithfully every night, beautiful and brief, just like mortal life, just like love. Raven leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you. I love you too." The stars shone bright overhead. The desert breathed its ancient breath. And Caspian smiled, because he had finally found what he had been searching for all along. Not cure for loneliness, but connection, family, love, home. The choice had been simple after all. Life over existence, love over power. 50 years of light over centuries of shadow. And he would make that choice again, every single time.